Hi, and thanks for joining us. My name's KIYA and I'm the Communications Manager for Houzz. Today, we're going to be talking to some professionals from our community about growth and how you run a successful design and build business. So it's a big topic. We've got a lot to cover today, but I'm sure that we will have some very interesting takeaways for you all. So I'm going to jump straight into it and I'm going to get these guys to just do a short introduction. So Danny, do you want to start by telling us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. Hi, I'm Danny, the founder of HOKO, the Homeless Architect. We're an architecture firm. We've been going for 2.5 years and we employ 35 people working on projects across the UK.
Amazing. Thanks for joining us. Tammy, do you want to go next?
Sure. So I'm Tammy. We have a construction company called POWELL 360 in Birmingham. We've been going for 10 years and we are a service that's a complete 360 degree, as the name would suggest.
Fantastic. And Alexandra?
Hi everyone, so I'm Alexandra Powell and I run Powell Design and Construction. I'm an architect like Danny, and my husband is an engineer and a builder. So we run a team of about 12 full-time team members, including architects and all the different tradesmen. And yeah, we specialize in residential extensions and renovations, offering a turnkey solution from concept design all the way through to planning, construction, landscape and interior design.
Well, let's get into it. I know growth is a very large topic and all three of you have quite different businesses at different stages, different histories. So I would love if we can just start by talking a little bit about those early days and what your main struggles were. If you want to start for us, Alexandra.
Sure. So my business was born slightly after my son. So I was in my maternity leave, and my husband and I just decided to start our own design and construction business. And then when I finished my maternity leave, I went back to the office and soon realized that it was no longer for me. I couldn't do 9 to 5. I wasn't feeling as sort of excited or inspired. I wanted to take more responsibility and I wanted to have more control over the future of the business. So we both took the kind of leap of faith to become self-employed at the same time. And we started on very small projects. So we do mostly heating projects, small like permitted development extensions. And then the business kind of grew faster than we expected into now doing big kind of new builds and high-end extensions and renovations. So it's been a real roller coaster ride, but the beginning was literally a leap of faith.
Which I think a lot of people watching this will relate to, because it's scary going on out on your own and knowing where that next paycheck's coming from. But I'm right in thinking it's only been a few years, hasn't it?
2.5 years, yeah. So my son is 3. And yeah, so we've got 2 babies at the same time, which has been fun. It's been a really exciting kind of family experience. And we are a family business and we do include our son in all our marketing. He's all over the website and he loves it. And people on social media love him too. So yeah, we are a family business at the core of it.
Yeah, and I think that's similar for you, Danny. I know that you also have a young child. So if you want to tell us a little bit about those early days.
Yeah, not to one up you, Alexandra, but I've actually got three now, so none of them were actually planned, so that's probably my own fault. But I actually set up HOKO a few months before my now wife actually got pregnant. So I was 25, pretty much fresh out of university. Wasn't part of the plan. I was living in Scotland. I'd come back from Canada. She was living down in England. So I had that crossroads. Sounds like the same like yourself of, do I commit to having a business or do I go back into practice? And I applied for a load of jobs and I got a few offers, and the same as you know, my heart wasn't in it. And I think that if you're really going to commit to something, you know from day one whether it's for you or not. And I definitely kind of thought within myself that it wasn't going to be the life that I wanted. And I didn't want to let, you know, having a family detract from that either. So I kind of felt a moral obligation to the boy we were going to have, that I wanted to set a good example for him of like not being scared to take on challenges. So that was, well, he just turned 5 last week. So the business properly commercially launched with our first employee and our office 2.5 years ago. And the day we kind of got the keys to our office on my employee's first day, who's now our technical director, my second son was born. So an absolutely chaotic day. And I remember being there at 2:30 in the morning, watching this baby being born, and then meeting him at 8:30, getting the keys for the first time to our space. So it was pandemonium. And we've just had a boy 6 weeks ago, again, just as we launched a really big crowdfunding campaign. So yeah, family and business, they can work well together.
Yeah. And I think, so Tammy, am I right? You have a family run business as well.
Yes, but I feel slightly like a senior citizen here because my sons are 35 and 30. So I've done everything that Alexandra and Danny have done, but I did that in a different business. I did it when I was in a retail business. And I remember those early days in that business were really quite challenging. You know, having children and sort of being back in the business sort of a week or two later, full on, you know, somehow when you look back and when you get to my ripe old age, you'll look at yourselves and you'll say, how did I do it? But the point is, you have no choice when you're in it. So you know, myself and my partner are very entrepreneurial people, and we decided to take what we'd learned from our retail business and apply it to the construction industry, which we felt 10 years ago had a very poor image. And I think where we are now is we've really reached a great maturity in our business, but doing it second time round was really interesting because applying the experience has probably propelled our growth in this business and this form that we're taking at the moment. So it's been very, very interesting. And I just wish I was 30 again and I could carry on for another 30 years.
So what would you say from those early days, kind of what was your biggest lesson learned? Danny, if you want to take that one.
I think for me, it was defining our purpose, you know, why the business was going to exist, because it takes so much energy, so much emotional stress, and it's traumatic at times. And it's funny that you know, hearing Tamina speak there, she's obviously a bit of an adrenaline junkie, because wanting to carry on doing this for another 30 years, you must be completely insane, but it does become addictive. And the only way it can actually become this thing, which is so much more than just a job, is if you're doing it for something more than money. You know, if you've got that reason to get up in the morning and go and change something, because I think all of us have the kind of shared opinion that the industry for private residence is completely broken, whether it's for architects, for builders, for engineers, especially for the homeowners, it's completely broken. And the biggest lesson learned from me was, you know, probably about 9 months into our proper commercial launch, we really defined what our thing was, and it was the perfect client experience. And having that North Star has been the biggest one thing that's made a difference to the decisions we've made. And it saved us chasing butterflies and doing lots of things that probably could have derailed our progress, and has kept us on a really strong trajectory. So yeah, defining your purpose, yeah, that's definitely the big one for me.
Fantastic piece of advice. I think starting anything new, it is, as we've said, scary, challenging, often quite difficult, and having the confidence, I think, to know the sorts of work that you want to take on and are willing to say no is a skill in itself. Alexandra, how's your experience been?
So we started off with the idea that we need to try lots of different things. We've worked with property investors. We have our own property portfolio that we work in. We work for homeowners. We've done some commercial projects. So our idea was, let's try different scales and find the sweet spot for us. So who is our ideal client? But I feel that you can't necessarily know that before you start without the experience. My grandfather always says, one thing you can't buy is experience. You just have to go through it. And we've certainly have lots of different experience under our belt now. And we have that very clear focus and vision now of who it is we want to work for. And we're passionate about creating houses that people are proud to call home. And that's what we want for our own space. And that's the feeling we want to create. So whether it's a tenant in a little buy-to-let terrace, or whether it's a homeowner in a grand design styles house, we want them both to be proud of their space, and we want it to reflect their personality and lifestyle.
Absolutely. And Tammy, what would be your best piece of advice, seeing as you've done it twice, for anyone that's starting out now?
I think advice-wise, well, there's so much really, but I think what the guys have said, Danny and Alexandra, is you've got to look at the market, you've got to know what your goal is, but I'd also add to that that you don't, or you shouldn't have your blinkers on, because things change all the time, and you've got to be aware of what's going on around you. Who are your competitors? What's your marketplace? What's going on in the wide world? So I think sort of keeping your eye on, you know, politics, economics, where things are going, where's the future? So for now, for us, for example, I'm looking at the virtual reality space in a big way. So that's sort of something that I'm looking at for the future, but it doesn't necessarily affect me today. You've always got to be looking ahead, being ahead of your competition. And probably one of the better piece of advice is that if you can hold with you is that if you were your competitor, what would make you nervous about your competitor's business? And you've got to put yourself sort of always not trying to only compete, but to sort of give yourself markers of where do you want to be. You've always got to aim to be the best, the most innovative, the most future facing, because the world's changing very, very quickly. So in my experience, in my first business, it was a very, very organic, slow, stable environment. And things didn't change quickly. New players didn't come to the market. People couldn't educate themselves quickly. Now, honestly, if you want to know something, you can find it out in 30 seconds. And that's made a big change. So you've got to be flexible, and you've got to be always looking, because you can get very buried in your day-to-day activities. So you've always got to be looking ahead at what's next, because as soon as you've created your business in a forward and progressive manner, they're all coming behind you, because you're the market leader, you're the example, you're who people are going, oh, all right, I see what they're doing, they're really successful, and you know, I'm going to try and emulate that. Now, there's not many people who, because I always think that people who are following are not really the people who are going to be your direct competition. They're just trying to ride on your experience, and you have to be at the forefront of that all the time. So not getting complacent is very, very important.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, sounds like hard work, but obviously worthwhile in the long run.
Well, you have to be interested in what you're doing. And as Danny said, it's not about the money. The money is so far down the list. It's a means to an end. You've got to be able to get up in the morning and want to do what you're doing. If you don't, do something else.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, let's kind of shift gears a little bit. So obviously the goal for any business starting out is reaching profitability, creating sustainable growth, kind of each year bettering the last year. How have you done that? What has been your experience, Alexandra?
So since the very beginning, the early days when I started the business, someone advised me to treat the business as if it's the bigger business that I kind of imagine it to be. So treat it like it's already established, it's already up and running, rather than treating it like a startup. So that's really what accelerated our growth. So one thing I've done from the beginning is always had a business coach, and always kind of upgrade my business coach to suit the needs of my business at the time. But my motto in business has always been, do what you do best and outsource the rest. So from the early days, I started growing a team, and I realized that we're only as good as the team that we can build. And that even though we were wearing all the hats at the beginning, doing all the roles, now we're able to kind of outsource so much of what we do. And part of my coaching experience was doing an exercise of listing every single thing that I do. So think about a typical week in terms of my whole life, my home life, my professional life, and list every single thing. And I ended up with about 200 things that I do. And then I categorized that into things that only I could do, things that I could potentially outsource, and things that I've already outsourced to give myself a kind of starting point. And that's how I run the business. I always think, who's the best placed person to do something? And my husband and I, as business partners, we always kind of divide and conquer. We have complementary skills. He's responsible for the day-to-day, and I'm responsible for the bigger vision and kind of where the business is going.
Thank you for sharing. I think that is an activity that everyone tuning in should go away and try to do, because I think it probably is eye-opening. I know from speaking to pros that delegation right at the beginning, when you are wearing every hat, it's your baby. Do you trust someone else to do that? But like you said, your time isn't best spent doing something that someone else can do quicker or cheaper or easier. Danny, what's your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that. I think I heard a piece of advice once about every business needs an entrepreneur, a manager, and a technician. And very rarely is that one person. And I think that if you can just decipher your best bit and kind of be very willing to let other people get involved and give them freedom and responsibility, if you get the right people, they'll really grow into that. And that's something that we had a lot of success with early on, which was our people. I think we're quite fortunate that in the architecture industry as a whole, having worked in different sorts of companies, they generally have quite a toxic work environment. They can be very competitive, and they can be quite difficult to manage. And what we tried to develop very early on was a very open culture, where everybody felt, protected and respected, and they had freedom to speak up about their ideas. And that has been a huge secret weapon for us as we've grown, because what you find often is it's the quiet people who have the best ideas, but they often don't have a voice. And we live in this like open plan office. You walk in and you don't know who's a director, who's an interior designer, who's in which team. It's very, very open and it's very friendly. And the one thing with that is that, as the business owner, you have to be willing to take on the really horrible, dirty jobs. So if there is a big complaint or a problem with a job, you have to be willing to let that get dropped on your plate, rather than what normally happens, which is the person junior gets shouted at. And instead, if they feel protected and secure, you get the best out of everyone. And, human beings are this kind of really weird creature. I think we're inherently quite, lazy and probably deceitful and selfish. But we also have the capacity to have incredible teamwork. That's kind of how we've ended up to get on the moon and stuff. So I think if you can align those cultural values and create a space where people feel that they can flourish, and you give them a mission, you're on to a winner with that one. And that's definitely made a big difference to us, year on year as we've grown our team as well.
Absolutely. And any big learnings that you've kind of taken away as you've been growing and reaching profitability, Tammy?
Yes, I would say that one of the key things is that you have to have your eye on the finances of the business, because in any business, really, whilst the remuneration and the money isn't the thing, if you don't control the business reporting, if you don't have the correct accountancy team, if you don't know where the money is, where it's going, how it's been handled, it'll take you down very quickly. So that can be just through not having the discipline for the detail from the accountancy side of your business. So, for example, I imagine Danny as an architect isn't really that interested in accountancy, because it's a completely different background and so on.
I'm quite interested in it now, to be fair. It wasn't when I finished my degree, but yeah, it's a big part of my life these days.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, is when you start out, it seems to be very low on the list of things to think about. But if you get your disciplines, your management, your routines in place on the money, then it all works quite naturally. Whereas if you sort of leave it to get into a bit of a mess, you know, with receipts all over the place and invoices that you don't know you paid, you haven't paid, and so on and so forth. As the business ramps up and becomes really significant and there's a lot of activity, if you haven't developed the routines, the systems, the processes, and, you know, we've all got it so easy these days. You know, when we started out, you know, we were doing things in little red ledger books, you know, and they used to, none of you would remember, there were green books that were for VAT and so on. It was all written by hand. Whereas now, you know, it's an app, isn't it? You know, everything's there. You can take photos, you can scan, you can upload and so on. So there's really no excuse to lose control over the finance side of your business. So I think that's really important. People also are massively important, and as the guys have said previously, you know, it's a very modern environment these days of people are not only valuing their workspace on how much they can be remunerated by. It's about well-being. It's about feeling part of the culture. It's about diversity. It's about sustainability. There are so many factors influencing where people want to spend 8-10 hours a day, every day. And as business owners, you've got to create those environments and understand that if you want to attract the right talent and you want to grow, you have to invest in that. And it's an investment all the way along in probably having to hire people ahead of when you really need them, so that you're not being reactive to a crisis point in your business where, you know, you're not able to fulfill commitments that you've made because you haven't got enough people. So we've always planned to have probably bigger premises than we need, more people than we need, and spend more than we needed to spend, so that we're setting ourselves up for the next little growth spurt of the business.
Yeah, I think that is fantastic advice. And I wanted to speak about people and hiring, because I think that it's a huge topic in itself. And I know that we are definitely not going to do it complete justice, but I would love to hear your thoughts on how you took that first step to hiring your first people, because I think for any new business, that can be quite a daunting time. So Alexandra, what were your first hires like?
Yeah, so early on, the first people we took on board were subcontractors, so tradespeople that we had on the team to help my husband deliver the projects. But the most difficult hire I made was another architect. It just didn't sit well with me to hire an architect to do the drawings that, in my mind, I should be doing myself. But I quickly realized through the coaching sessions that I had with my business coach at the time, that my place was to run the business, to bring the clients in, to work on the kind of concepts and the client experience. And then the architect that I hired did an incredible job of doing a lot of the kind of drafting work in the background. And then we just continued. We hired 2 virtual assistants, one in the UK, one abroad. We hired, I have a personal assistant with a lot of experience in contracts and health and safety. We took on a much bigger accountant and a much bigger bookkeeper than we needed at the time, so we could grow into their services. However, out of all the 12 people that we have full-time today, nobody is employed by us. So everybody's either a freelancer or a subcontractor, which means that we have this kind of flexibility. There is no office, we don't have premises. Everybody works either from home or different locations. So we give people the freedom and the flexibility. So they work for us because they want to, and we keep that kind of motivation going, and we can grow quite quickly without having to hire more people.
Very interesting. And Danny, what's your experience there?
Yeah, that's really interesting. So I've kind of approached it from a totally different perspective, where we've got a team of 34 and we employ all of them full time, including all the architects. And the way our model works is quite different, and it can be seen as the microcosm of when I made my first hire, which was understanding within myself fundamentally what I was definitely not good at, and that was probably the technical aspects of construction, purely by the nature of my experience and being quite a young architect. So I brought on a much more experienced architectural technologist to work with me. And just like Alexandra, I would go out and win the work. I would do the design. I would make sure, you know, everybody was valued and happy and listened to, kept the communication going, building the brand. And meanwhile, he was in the background, this kind of what we call now the engine room of producing all this material. And we work in a very similar way where we've got our headquarters in Glasgow. We've got this really vibrant office space full of technicians, interior designers, you know, our ops people, our directors, and then we've got individual architects who are set up, you know, on their own, who are local to their clients, who have this huge firepower behind them. So they're almost like the one-man band, but, you know, without any of the rubbish stuff that architects need to do. And we found that was a really good strategy for scaling. And it's kind of, it freaks people out sometimes that we're like, you know, hiring all these architects full time. It's a big commitment. And to be honest, there's some of them that haven't worked out. But I think because what we're trying to do is such a disruptive, you know, approach to the industry, is that we needed people who were completely aligned with our vision. And we've got this EMI scheme and stuff like that as well. So people can feel ownership over our mission as well, as we try and, you know, change things and make things better. So that's kind of our approach to it, which is quite different, but it seems to work out, you know, in the long run.
I think it just goes to show that no two businesses in this space are the same, and what works for someone isn't necessarily going to work for another. So I do think it's really interesting to have those different viewpoints. How's it work for you guys at ProBuild 360?
It's a mixture that we've built up over the years. We have had to kiss a few frogs. I think we all have to do that. And, you know, we found our sort of type of person, you know, we put a lot of value on loyalty. We put a lot of value on training. You know, it's not always easy to find exactly the correct person. So if the fundamental things about the character of a person, the work ethic and so on are correct, sometimes it's a matter of sort of playing the long game and putting in the experience and the commitment and the training that is needed to get you know, your team where you are. We found that we've grown our team a lot, quite organically through natural progression. So people who've started with us, you know, maybe in a trade capacity, have worked their way through to being on the very top tier of our management now because they know the DNA of the company. So apprentices is a very important thing for us. You know, our sort of lady in the office, Savannah, she's been with us straight from school, really. And she, you know, we always laugh, if you cut Savannah, she'll bleed ProBuild, you know. It's that kind of relationship that we have with our people. And we just see our team as family. And we go through their highs, through their lows. We support them, they support us. And I think if you're spending so much time every day with your team, you should enjoy it. And, you know, and they should enjoy it, more importantly, really. And that's how we handle it, is that we're very loyal to our team, they're very loyal to us, and we grow together.
I think it's so interesting what you say about finding the right person, and hiring is tough. And I know at the moment it's a tough market. There is skills shortages.
Yeah.
Alexandra, how have you gone about finding the right people for your business?
So in the beginning, I chose to sort of recruit myself, and I was on Facebook, I was on LinkedIn, I was on different job boards, and it was an absolute nightmare. Even with the help of my virtual assistant screening applications, it was such a time-consuming task, and the interview process was painful. So after that experience, I realized I need to find a recruitment agent who specializes in construction, who's local, who understands the market. And she's really kind of embraced our values and our vision for the business. So every time she puts out a job advert for us, she filters the people to literally 1 or 2. And we've taken on every single person that she's brought forward, because she does all the legwork for us. So for me, it goes back to my original point about outsourcing to a professional rather than trying to wear all the hats. I'm not interested in being a recruitment agent. So why should I be practicing that skill? So I learned that the hard way.
I think that's a very good tip. Coming from someone who is an ex-recruitment agent, it's not an easy job. Obviously, running a business, systems play such a big part in that, and making sure that you can operate efficiently, you know what you're doing. Like Tammy said, you understand what's paid when, and you're not kind of chasing your tail. And I know that Houzz Pro can play a big part in that. I'm very biased, but I'd love to hear about how you made sure that you had the right systems in place and you were kind of ensuring that you were running an efficient business. Danny, if you want to tell us a little bit about your experience.
Yeah, so I mean, we're a completely tech-focused approach to architecture, and we know that whatever platforms or software you're using, it can really make or break your success. You need to make sure that, from acquiring the client and getting the right good quality leads all the way through to completing the project and getting reviews and all that sort of stuff, that you're going to get the maximum bang for your buck in terms of kind of where you spend your time and what resources you put into that. And the reality is there's loads of options out there, but I think when you partner with different companies, like obviously we've been using Houzz for 2 years. We've won the Best of Houzz awards 2 years in a row. We've got over 50 plus 5-star reviews. It carries a huge amount of weight because you're not just leveraging your own brand reputation, but you're also leveraging against a reputable name like Houzz. It's kind of akin to getting an article in the BBC or something. It kind of validates what you're doing. And certainly with Houzz Pro as well, in taking the lead acquisition piece and getting a call from like a concierge type system, it can make it quite easy for you to kind of bring on new clients, and somebody's almost trying to help that along. So it's really made a big difference to us. And I think when you're trying to weigh up different options, there's always the cheap option and there's quite often a more expensive option, but you really need to assess it over time, the return on the investment. And we track data from every source, and Houzz has been a really positive impact on HOKO as we've kind of become the fastest growing architecture firm in the UK. And it's a company we're proud to be working with.
Oh, it's really great to hear. And Alexandra, how's your experience been kind of building a software and tech focused architecture and design practice?
Yeah, so as I said, we don't have an office. So with everyone being remote, it's very, very important for us to be able to track what everybody's working on and being able to communicate easily and really optimize our customer journey. So right from the moment the lead comes in and me responding, gathering information, pre-qualifying them to see if they are our ideal client and we can help them out, all the way, as Danny said, to getting those really, really important reviews and getting the social proof, which is then going to bring in more clients. So yeah, I also leverage technology for this. And as far as I'm concerned, there's no other way to do it rather than affiliating yourself with an established company and then using the systems that they've already built.
Great. And for you, Tammy, because obviously ProBuild has been in business for 10 years, I believe. So you've probably seen a significant shift in how businesses are run and the technology that's available to leverage. How has that played a part, and how are things different now to when you started?
Well, things are incredibly different now to when we started, and in a very positive way, because one thing that, echoing what Alexandra's saying, is you don't need to reinvent the wheel for yourself all the time. Other companies are providing solutions. We were I was the first person in the UK that, I don't know if you have worked with Fionn from Houzz. So I took that first call from Fionn, which was her first call in the UK of trying to introduce Houzz to the marketplace. And I think we both got lucky that day, to be honest, because coming from a retail background into a construction environment, I had a very open mind to what Fionn was trying to introduce, the marketing possibilities, the affiliation, all of the things that I'd learned through retail, which is a very sales-based environment, obviously. I could see what Houzz were trying to do. So we started working together in the very, very early days and completely supported you guys at Houzz, and you completely supported us. And that has, it's been wonderful to see your journey through from where you were, where it was just Fion and, you know, no office, no nothing, just sort of, you know, a couple of guys, you know, sort of set up to introduce this service, all the way through to, you know, the more recent days of Houzz Pro becoming available. And that has helped us in a great way, because everything is about the customer journey. If we can't keep that customer journey tracked, happy, live, up to date, and as Alexandra said, market that to the next client through our social platforms and so on, we're really not going to be doing a very good job. So, you know, yes, I think looking at what's already available, and now the wonderful thing about all of these systems is that you get plugins from all of the similar systems, you know, through accounting, through other things that are complementary, and support, and things flow through. And, you know, obviously to somebody who's come from a paper-based systems and processes, you know, Excel was like amazing when that came. We could do a spreadsheet, and now to where we are, where it's so quick, it's, you know, so fast. I mean, you've got to remember, in days gone by, you know, our guys would be phoning us up and saying, what's the customer's number? You know, 15, 20 times a day. Whereas now they have it on an app, they have it on a phone, they can, you know, access all of the information. There's no reason for anybody to disturb anybody unnecessarily. And we use our time so much more efficiently because of the systems and processes that are available to everybody now, no matter day one of a business or, you know, 15 years down the line. You know, it's all at your fingertips now. And, you know, I just think that we're of the generation that we've got the biggest benefit, because we've got the experience of, from pre-mobile phones experience through to now, everything's at the tip of your finger. And I still marvel at it, you know, it's just like so incredible, but it makes us so much more appreciative of what's out there now and the potential for the future. And I think that's the thing, is keep your eye on where this is going from here, you know, because, you know, these kind of systems, it's only really the beginning of this simplicity and, you know, sort of, there's no way you could have worked from home like in Alexandra's model, you know, sort of 10 years ago. But now, of course, you can, you know, because you can share the information so quickly.
Absolutely. I think the renovation industry is probably one of the later industries to really embrace technology, but it's definitely happening now. We really see it from the homeowner perspective. They expect more transparency. Everything they do is on their phone nowadays. So they are wanting that from the professionals that they work from and expecting that better customer service. And I think software really helps facilitate that. Danny, I know that technology is incredibly important to your business, and it has been from day one. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, I mean, everything we do at HOKO is geared towards the perfect client experience. That's our whole mission, and that kind of comes from you know, making sure that we feed every single aspect through the right channels and through the right people. And the whole purpose of technology should really be to enable people to do more people stuff. And if you've got people kind of running around doing all sorts of random tasks, you know, everything that we've talked about today ends up coming back to, you know, your purpose and enabling efficiencies. And there's so many people out there that take one sort of key part of the multifaceted problem, which is, you know, home extensions, which seem like dead easy when you look at it, but actually it's a multifaceted thing. And so there's so many people out there that do their one component part really, really well, but it's joining all those dots together. I think engaging with platforms and other companies that align with kind of the way you're thinking can be a shortcut to quite rapid growth. And that's something that we've managed to do quite well. You know, joining Houzz early doors was a smart move for us, because I think the reviews is probably one of the biggest things that's helped us. And you know, when a client then approaches us through our profile, they can see straight away that, you know, we're pre-qualified, we're quality focused, we've got nice projects, and, you know, the hard bit's already done. as opposed to, you know, calling somebody up. I remember the early days getting a list of phone numbers of leads, phoning them up, and it's like, hi, you were looking for an extension, and straight away you're into this quite difficult kind of cold call mentality. You know, I feel for recruiters sometimes with that regard. So yeah, it just kind of softens it, and it lets you do more of the thing you love, you know, which is your company, and growing it, and having fun and being around people that you like and admire, and your team. So yeah, it's been a huge asset for us, but it's the people enabling thing which is the secret weapon.
Such good advice. One other big topic, which is obviously huge when you're growing a business, is attracting new business and the right types of clients. And it's not an easy thing to do. What's your experience been, Tammy?
I think it's not easy. It's definitely not easy, but if you are transparent, if you're honest, if you look at your brand, if you're clear in your message, and you look after your customers, look after your reviews, your online profiles, all of that, people will find you for sure. And it's all about reputation. At the end of the day, your reputation is really all you've got for people to make their choices on. So for us, I would say that, you know, people are entrusting us with their life savings when they're starting on a project of the type that we do. They've really spent a very long time acquiring their property, they want to have their dream home, their vision is big. And it doesn't matter whether it's a small project to us or a huge project to us, we have to give the same level of service. And if we do that, your reputation will build. I think that, you know, looking for new business, I mean, we've sort of tried to divide our business up into brands and target areas, and we haven't limited ourselves to just one thing, you know. But we don't just put everything into the melting pot and see what comes out. You know, we're quite strategic in our approach to our offers. And I think it's all about clarity at the end of the day, because people have got a very short amount of time to make their decision about you, because, you know, you're even for example on Houzz, you might be flicking through a whole array of professionals that are appearing there. They're all putting their best foot forward, they're all showing their best work, they're all you know, marketing themselves, and you have to have stability, you have to have honesty, you have to have transparency, you have to have good pedigree behind you in order to attract new and bigger and bigger business as you go along.
Thank you so much for sharing, Temi. Very, very interesting. Alexandra, how have you approached marketing?
So I completely agree with everything that's been said. And for me, building a brand and talking about our brand story has been the most powerful thing. And people have come to us, I feel, organically. Obviously, we have to put our message out there, who we are, what we do. And also, I think it's really, really important to always talk to people about what it is that you do. And especially if you're passionate, that comes through. So I've had clients from networking events, going to the hairdressers, going to a baby yoga class. It's unbelievable where leads can come from. So if we're always in that kind of mindset and keeping things open, I think new business can come from everywhere. And I feel it's so much easier to get additional work from an existing client than it is to convert a cold lead into a new client. So that's something that I'm really focused on. It gives me peace of mind to work with a client where we have established trust. So we know, like, and trust each other already, but also I know that they're good to communicate with. I know that they're good payers, and I don't have to go through the stress of building a relationship from scratch. So for me now, it's more about quality than quantity when it comes to clients.
It's very, very interesting. Like you said, I think a new client is always harder to acquire than one that you've worked with before and had a good experience. So building those long-term relationships and cultivating that over a period of time, is a valuable skill that anyone watching this should be able to take away from this. Danny, I want to speak to you because I know that brand and building a brand has been something that's very important to you, and then marketing that. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience and the successes and the learnings that you've seen there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think anybody who kind of goes into the business of having your own company, they become quite egotistical by their very nature, and you can be very inward looking a lot of the time. And the biggest thing that helped us with marketing was just putting ourselves in our client's shoes. Who's our ideal client? You know, where are they going to be looking for us? And where they go to look, let's make sure we're there. And let's make sure that we're appealing and ticking the boxes that they want to see. I mean, we've all been sold to probably hundreds of thousands of times. And how many times does a salesperson tell you, you know, what they think is important when it's maybe not actually what you think is important? So we're trying to simplify our message as much as possible and make sure that constantly aligns with, you know, the purpose of the company. It's about the experience. We're looking at the pain points, how we remove those, you know, how we protect their, you know, their financial investment, how much fun it's going to be as well, you know, and that when things go wrong, that we'll be there to catch you. And it kind of, it's kind of like a multi-pronged approach to how you actually deliver your story. I mean, there's lots of things you can do with social ads and things like Pixel that will follow people around their different platforms and all that sort of stuff. But ultimately, it comes down to telling a story, because, you know, people respond to that. Our brains will always look for a story to reaffirm what we want to believe. And if you're telling a story that kind of aligns with what your clients are going for, you know, that's kind of the tricky bit done. And then it's maintaining that relationship. And with small residential projects, especially any scale of homeowner project, really, it's such an emotional thing. You know, they don't teach you that through university. It's very stressful. And I think, unfortunately, the industry has a big stigma against homeowners. And it's easy to see why. You know, quite often this is the first time they've tried this. They've watched a lot of grand designs, their expectations are sky high. And sometimes you need to give them a bit of a reality check and make sure that, you know, their expectations are not going to damage your brand when inevitably something goes wrong. So it's just making sure that, you know, obviously for us, it's the perfect client experience. That doesn't always mean it's a flawless process. It means that, you know, we approach it and deal with problems effectively. And I think for us, finding the right client, finding out where they are, I think for us, one of the trends we found was that we were getting slightly more upper end clients through Houzz in different areas, which I don't know if the other two found the same, but there's certain clients look for the right people in the right places. And I think it's worth your while spending time to find out, you know, where to look.
Fantastic advice. I think we've come to the end of our hour here. So I'm going to try and wrap this up now, but there's been so much. I can't believe we've managed to cover so much in this, but it's been fantastic to hear from you all, sharing your experiences, and then there's been so many good takeaways. So I hope everyone watching feels like they've learned something and it's been valuable, and thank you all for joining us.